Hello, and welcome back to Your Life Your Way. I'm your host, Kathleen McDermott. Have you ever been, are you, or do you see it in your future possibly being a caregiver for a loved one? When you are a caregiver for a loved one, it comes with a bucket load of emotions, fear and joys and guilt and a lot of love. But it's a journey that often feels very lonely. We're talking about this today. We're diving into a series, and if you caught the episode regarding caring for your loved ones during the holidays, then you've already had the pleasure of hearing Debbie Compton. Debbie is a three-time caregiver for parents with different forms of dementia. She is a certified caregiving consultant and advocate, educator for the Alzheimer's Association, speaker, and best-selling author of not one, not two, but 12 books. She is the founder of the Purple Vine, whose mission is to empower caregivers to reduce their stress, avoid burnout, and to laugh again, as she says. And I'm finding out myself that is so important to remember to laugh. Debbie Compton, thank you so much for being with us again today. We are doing a series, a three-part series about the
We
journey of caregiving. So please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey.
we are. Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it because there are so many caregivers out there who need support and need information. So thank you for doing what you're doing
You're
and
welcome.
getting that information out there to help those folks. As you said, I'm a three-time caregiver. I cared for Dad with Parkinson's till he passed in his home. I cared for my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's till she passed in my home, and for my mother who had vascular dementia for 21 years until she passed just this last September. So I definitely have experience as a caregiver. I learned a lot along the way, which is what motivates me to help others. I don't want other people to struggle like I did. It was not easy. And I didn't get my certifications until after two of my loved ones passed away. So then I learned a lot of information that would have been so helpful had I known sooner. But I think that most of your caregivers can probably relate to me. It seemed like I became a caregiver overnight, but in reality, I didn't. I just didn't know the warning signs to look out for. And so I found myself suddenly in the caregiver position without knowing what to do or how to do it. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot. It was a lot of laughter, a lot of joy, a lot of tears, a lot of stress, all the
Oh,
emotions. So I'm just here to help caregivers have an easier time in any way I can.
and that's why I specifically, personally wanted to reach out to you. You and I, our paths crossed in a group, some type of informational, educational, we were both in. And I remember you introducing yourself, and I went, oh, I need to speak with her. Excuse me, because I'm in a stage of life where my mom is changing. Her
Mhm.
her hearing has been so bad for so long, and I never knew that hearing loss begins to shut down parts of the brain, which is another form of dementia.
Yes.
And it's changed her brain a bit. I can see her memory is getting worse and her cognition is not what it used to be. So I'm in this very beginning stage, and hopefully, we all pray this is the only stage.
Right.
But I think I'm at the beginning stage of really seeing my mother begin to change. And that's what we're talking about today. This episode is called The Diagnosis and the Beginning, and where do you go? And Debbie's going to fill us in on that because it's scary. So I'm going to hush for a bit and have you dive into just sharing with us, what do we do as the loved one when we see this change of life happening?
Well, first, as you said, it is scary and it's frightening. It's the unknown. It's the big monster over in the corner that you never hoped to have to deal with. So there's a lot of emotion involved in it right from the start. One thing I would like to say to you, though, is you're correct with the hearing loss that can induce then MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment. Doesn't mean that your mother has dementia. That used to be labeled as the first step of dementia, but they now know that you can have mild cognitive impairment and just stay at that level the rest of your life without getting any worse. Yes, something to hope for.
Mhm.
So that can be. There's other things too. You can have all the symptoms of dementia without really having dementia
Hmm.
because that can be caused by a UTI,
Oh,
um,
yes.
an infection. It mimics
Mhm.
the symptoms of dementia, even if you're low on vitamin D or vitamin E. It mimics the symptoms of dementia. You have brain fog, you can't think clearly, you can't remember people and places and things, and sometimes it's just the fact that you're dehydrated. So drink water. Water is the best thing. And so that's what I would encourage people right off. If you're starting to have some of those brain fog, or mom or dad, get them to drink more water because sometimes that's all you need to fix the situation. So, before I get into really more about dementia, we need to understand dementia itself. So, dementia is a big umbrella term. So, if you think of a giant umbrella, it encompasses things that inhibit your ability to perform daily functions. It does include memory loss, which most people recognize, but it's so much more than that. It affects every part of the brain, which is your nervous system for your
Mhm.
entire body. So it affects motor skills, it affects walking, it affects balance, all these different things. So dementia is the big term. Now, under that dementia umbrella, we have a lot of different diseases. 80% of those are Alzheimer's. And so Alzheimer's is the majority. That's why it's the one that you hear the most about. So Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. A lot of people get that incorrect. They'll say, well, mom has Alzheimer's, but she doesn't have dementia. That's not possible. Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. You also have Parkinson's. About 2% of the people have Parkinson's, which is a form of dementia. My mother had vascular dementia. About 14% have that. But then you have a host of other diseases in there as well. You've got frontal temporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, multi infarct dementia, Huntington's disease, no, Creutzfeldt Jacob disease. I knew I'd say that wrong. There's alcohol related dementia that they're
Hmm.
discovering now. Too much alcohol intake can cause dementia. There's Down syndrome with Alzheimer's, HIV associated dementia, and sadly, there's childhood dementia. So there are others also, and childhood dementia, thankfully, is much more rare, but it can absolutely happen. So all of these are a form of dementia. They each have a little bit of differences and a lot of similarities. So it depends on which type you're talking about as to actually what you're dealing with under the dementia umbrella. But they all affect reasoning, memory, and activities of daily life. So, but then, like Parkinson's has the tremor,
Mhm.
and so they have the problems with the walking and things. Lewy body affects more of the body and less of the brain. So that's why it's important to get a proper diagnosis. If you've gone to a physician, typically you're going to see the general physician who's the one who spots it and says, "Hey, you have dementia or you have Alzheimer's." They may quite often they say you have Alzheimer's when it's not actually Alzheimer's. So what you need to do is to then follow up and see a specialist, a neurologist,
Mhm.
so that you can find out exactly what form it is that you're dealing with. Because as I said, they're different. And so there's different medications that work for different diseases. So let's go to the beginning. You're at the doctor's office. You've just heard this news. Your loved one has Alzheimer's. If you're like me, my head was spinning. I was going, this can't be true. How is this possible? What am I going to do? What does this mean? Just what? All these questions. The problem that I had was that the doctor doesn't have time to sit there and explain everything to you because they have more patients and they have
Hmm.
more things to do and they're very busy. That's oftentimes where I come in to help. I have a couple of doctors who, when they diagnose someone, then they ask them to call me. And so then I can spend time with them and talk to them and explain the different stages of the disease, which, if you Google, you can see the stages of the different disease. Just Google the specific disease. It can be really scary when you do that, though. and you need to make
The
sure
rabbit
that you're
hole.
looking at a reputable source because there's a lot of false information out there. So, go
May
ahead.
I? That's a
Yes.
really, really good idea because I can't even, I can tiny bit imagine because I know when I was just in looking at the x-rays of my knee on the screen and the doctor telling me I was going to need full knee replacement, even that small minor change in my life made me go, not hearing what he was saying next because I was
Yes.
thinking, oh, all my thoughts. And you've heard people say when they've gotten the cancer diagnosis, they don't hear beyond.
Anything
So,
else?
and it's the same for the loved one who's hearing the diagnosis. They've gone to this place, I'm sure, of, oh my God, and the thoughts start ringing. So to be able to reach out to you and when their mind is cleared and then they've had a
Yes.
chance to breathe and come up with some questions, that's
Yes.
a great, great idea.
It's so much better. And
Yes.
because then, like you said, they've been able to process it a little
Yeah.
bit, and then they can form those questions. And typically, most people's questions are pretty much similar. And so I can answer those and address those and give them hope. That's the main
Mm.
thing. People need to recognize this is not a death sentence. Life is over. That's it. We're done. Write them off. Don't do that. There is so much more joy to be had. There's joy all throughout the journey, even at the end of the journey. There's still things that you can do to connect with that loved one. So don't lose hope, first off. But there are things that you need to do. But the number one thing before I get further into that, the number one thing that I feel that brand new caregivers need to understand is don't argue with your loved one. If they have a form of dementia, their reasoning is the first thing that's attacked. That's the very first part of their brain that starts to disappear. It's not just shrink. We know now that it's dying. And so don't argue with them. You're not going to win. You can't change their mind because they no longer have that ability to reason. And if you need a second reason why not to, that makes them stressed. And stress makes the disease progress faster.
May I share? And I do want
Yes.
to share certain points throughout this series because I know that it can be easy to just not be vulnerable and not to speak what you're feeling. And I think if I'm sharing my own personal feelings and you're sharing yours, it's going to, I hope, help someone else be willing to say, okay, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling.
Yes.
And I reacted when you said that don't argue. And I know that I have done that with my mom. And I also have worked so hard to process my own feelings that that little girl is still there and that mother daughter relationship. And it's like I can force her to be okay.
Right.
I can force her to be well. It's ridiculous, but it's
Right.
that childness, it's your
Yes.
mom.
No, I thought I was aggravated at mom because I thought you're not trying. You're not even trying to remember. And that's not true. I know
No.
now that's not true. I didn't know at the time because like you said, that's mom.
Yeah.
And I also believe that it's at that point that the grieving starts because you're grieving the loss of that loved one, the loss of the relationship that you had because the relationship will change, but you still have the person. And so you need to remember that. And the person is still in there and hold on to those memories of the way that they were and the things that you loved and the person that you know them to be, because they may say and do things that are completely contrary, that are completely different than anything that they would have done before. That's the disease. That's not your loved one. That's not what they've turned into. That's the disease attacking the brain. So keep those precious memories and lock them away. Keep them there so that you don't lose those. And don't believe that this is your mom, that your mom is intentionally wanting to say mean or hurtful things to you. She's not. She just doesn't understand anymore.
Deb, how because you can still create memories.
Yes.
It's not as if you have the diagnosis on a Tuesday and all of a sudden Wednesday the memory is completely gone. What
Right.
have you seen in your experience with your own personal and with clients? How long, and I know you can't, and there's no crystal ball, but you still have a time period where the person is coherent in your.
You do. You do. It's different with every person. My dad knew he had Parkinson's and it bothered him. He knew he couldn't remember things like he used to be able to, and it stressed him out. He knew that he couldn't add like he used to, and it made him tense.
Mm,
Because of those things, his progression was quick. He was about 7.5 years from beginning to end. And
mm,
well, that's beginning diagnosis.
mhm,
He had issues before that, but we couldn't get the diagnosis. We couldn't find out what was wrong. Parkinson's is harder to diagnose because it mimics several other diseases. And so once we finally got the diagnosis, then it was 7.5 years until he passed away. But we still had probably 4 years of good, and just very, very minor issues. My mother-in-law was the same way. She had Alzheimer's. She knew that things were wrong. She knew she couldn't remember things. It made her angry. And that really bothered her, stressed her out, and she would
mm.
try so hard to remember and she just couldn't. And that would make her more angry, which then you get into other issues with Alzheimer's that can be the anger, the violent, that kind of thing. So, but then look at my mom. My mom had vascular dementia for 21 years.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I'm not really familiar with that one, I don't think at all.
Vascular dementia was typically brought on by uncontrolled high blood pressure. Can also
Ah,
be uncontrolled cholesterol, diabetes, same way. So you've got to control your numbers. If you have any of those symptoms, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, keep your numbers in check. Don't let them get out of control for long periods of time. My mother did. She just didn't know any better. She had a lot of headaches. She just take Tylenol. She never checked her blood pressure. And then when they did, it was sky high, and then they couldn't get it down. And she just struggled with a lot of high blood pressure issues, which high blood pressure damages the brain. Um, and so that's what caused a lot of hers. But she was very high functioning for many, many years. But mom did not know that she had any form of dementia. She didn't know anything was wrong. She's a happy little camper. And she just it was great. And we would just tell her. I'd tell her when she'd forget something and she's like, "I don't know why I can't remember that." And I'd say, "Oh, it's fine, Mom. I forget stuff all the time." And she'd just accept it and go on. And so we had a lot of years that were very, very good before she started to get worse. But even at the end, even when she had lost her ability to speak, she could no longer speak. She didn't know who I was the majority of the time. Very heartbreaking, but we still had joy because you can still put on happy music and have them dance around if they can, or just move to the music and smile, and it
Deb's,
helps to restore the
yeah,
brain.
yeah.
Music therapy is real. It works. I've seen it with mom. So, and there's more tips that I'll give on that too when we talk about the last stages, because there are things that you can do every stage of the disease to still have laughter and still enjoy your loved one.
And it's so
So,
important. I mean, just in life, we don't laugh enough every day. And I try to
right.
make sure I at least go to Instagram, which is my little place I go to look to laugh because the videos are so funny. Because I want to make sure every day that I'm laughing. And
Yes.
as we go through this series, you will be giving tips and ideas and giving us space to find hope. But there's I'm sure there's times when people are going to say, or they're listening to this and they're already deep, maybe in their middle, the thick of it, and they're thinking, how am I supposed to find time to laugh? But I'm hoping through this
You
series that
can.
you can at least
You
find
can.
some light.
Yes. And even if you're a solo caregiver all by yourself and you've got no one else to help you, there are still ways for you to de-stress and for you to find joy. Yeah. Every phase, absolutely. And in the first phase, it's easier, what we're talking about right now, because they haven't really gotten really bad yet. But we need to prepare in this early phase.
So
So
what do we
one of
do?
the Okay. All right. So number one, you went to visit a geriatrician or a neurologist so that you could get a more defined um, diagnosis of what you have, not just the general dementia. So you've done that. Then stay active. Get exercise. Sunshine is fantastic for you, for everybody. Our bodies need the vitamin D. So if you're in a place where you can get outside and walk, do that. It will help every one of the diseases. All of them are improved by active walking, getting exercise, and sunshine. So that's something that you need to keep doing. Don't let them just sit in the chair and watch TV all day. You need to do that. And then other people say, as a caregiver, it's good for you as well. So a solo caregiver could say, well, I can't. They're in a wheelchair. Well, sure you can. I put a blanket over my mother in law and I pushed her all over the place. We went everywhere for walks. You can do it. Find a way. Then what we need to do is look at the diet because our diet greatly affects us. It affects our brain as well as our bodies. So you need a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. The Mediterranean diet is one of the very best out there. It's good for your brain and your body. So change what you eat. Pay attention to it. Even as I say that, I've run into people who took those words and went 100% strict on, okay, my mom's not going to have any sugar anymore. We're cutting all
Mhm.
this out. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't take away all their joy.
Yeah.
It's okay. You everything has to be in moderation. So introduce new foods, but don't rob them of the things that they love and that they enjoy. Because if you try to walk a mile in their shoes, they've gotten this devastating news.
Mhm.
They possibly know what's coming. Their world is going to keep getting smaller and smaller. Their choices are going to get smaller and smaller. So let them have and do and control as much as they can. That's one of the best things that you can do for your loved one.
Yeah, because they're scared too.
Yes, they are. Even if
Yeah.
they act like they're not, they are. And make sure that they maintain social connections. It's very important for them to stay active. If they went to church, keep them going. Keep them going to senior centers, playing games, because that actually boosts your brain power as you're interacting with other people and you're releasing endorphins in the brain, the feel good chemical, because you are interacting, your brain is thinking of what to say, thinking about what they've said. So you're exercising your brain. Socialization is a great activity that you don't want to ignore, you don't want to forget about. And then make plans for the future. Okay, this is the not so fun part, but it's something that we need to do. You need to think about legal, financial, and long-term planning. So, a power of attorney needs to be appointed for both the medical and the financial decisions. You can have joint power of attorneys as well. Now, the forms are available online. You can just Google power of attorney, financial power of attorney, health. You can Google it, print it out, and get it there, and get it notarized so that you have that, and then you'll make copies of it for the doctor's office, for the bank, for everyone you have dealings with, the credit card companies, so that you can show them that you are the responsible person, that you're going to be taking over your parents' finances. Initially, you won't be taking them over, but you'll be assisting. You still have to have the permission to assist. And the power of attorney is so important because once they've gotten the diagnosis, you may have a whole lot of good years and then things get bad. You may have a very short time and things get bad. So you need to have that in place because once it's documented that they have a form of dementia and that they have diminished capacity, then they are no longer able to assign a power of attorney.
True.
Then you're in trouble. Okay, then there are still things you can do, but it's a mess. It's not easy. So you want to get that up front. What I did with my parents on their checking account, I was added on their checking account as a joint owner of the account. That way I could handle issues and take care of things as I needed to as an owner without involving them because they, fell victim to some scams and things like that. And the people that come around and say, oh, this is your grandson. And they said, don't you recognize me? And then mom said, oh, is this David? Well, yeah, it's David because she gave them the name. And so then they know. So very sad, but we need to prepare and guard against that as much as possible. And what you can do in the very beginning, too, is to use memory aids. We don't have to depend fully on our brain to remember everything. I mean, I don't. Goodness knows. I have my
No.
iPhone.
Yeah. I have notes everywhere.
Yeah, Mike, I do too. If you could see this, I mean, post-it note queen here. But also, I have my calendar on my iPhone. And so if it's in my calendar, it's going to happen. If it's not, well, take your chances. But this is the same thing we want to do for our loved one. You can get a whiteboard that's about, I got one that's about 1 foot by 2 foot. My sister-in-law had one that's 2 feet by 4 feet, whatever size you want, doesn't matter. But what you do is you write the day of the week on it, and then you can write, something encouraging if you want. Also, in that, before I go further, the day of the week, the month, the day, and the year. Put all the information on there and write in large print, really large, so that they can see it easily and can read it easily. And then just any key things that are happening that day. If you're going to have a visitor at 10 a.m., who Shirley coming to visit 10 a.m., whatever is going on, important things. Now, that will help them, and you keep the whiteboard stuck in a place on the wall and don't move it. Don't change its location once you put it up there. So you get them used to going to the whiteboard to see what we're doing today, and then they'll know that it's there. This is where the information is at on the whiteboard. There will come a time when it won't help, but it will help, hopefully for a very long time. It depends on your person.
Good idea.
Yeah. And you can put, and as things get worse, you put less information on it. And if a time on there upsets them, because see, a time helped my mom a whole lot. A time was really bad for my mother-in-law, because my mother-in-law would say, "Well, is it 10 o'clock yet? I thought they're coming at 10 o'clock." And well, it's 8 o'clock. We've got a ways to go. You know, 10
Oh, I
minutes
see.
later, are they coming yet? They said they were coming. No, they're not coming yet. So learn your person and adapt everything to your person. Okay?
Let me ask if I may.
Yes.
How did you, how do you help your clients move through that stage of, okay, everything is life, life's great, where everybody's doing their thing. Then all of a sudden, your loved one has changed. Now your life is changing.
Changes.
And you're now in that window where, okay, you have to do, but here's my life still over here, and here's their life here, and then here's our life together. How did you navigate feeling like you were giving up part of your life? Because you are.
You are. The reality is you are. Being a caregiver is the toughest job out there. I don't know of a harder job. It is very, very difficult. I led teams nationwide, and it was easier than being a caregiver. But you have to find that little moment for you. You still have to keep some little bits for you. Otherwise, you lose yourself. And I know that from experience because that's what happened to me. I had a doctor ask me about a particular medication that was for me, and I was totally blank. I could tell you every medication my mother in law was taking, and my dad, and my mom, but then mine was kind of irrelevant. It was just like, oh, and that's when, he gave me a little bit of a lecture and said, "You are still a person too. Your life matters too.
Mhm.
If something happens to you, what's going to happen to them?"
Scary.
And so, yeah. And then I learned a really tough lesson. It's that, and I'm thick headed sometimes. So I had to put it on an index card and post it on my refrigerator. Self care is not selfish,
No, it's not.
but I couldn't get that through my head. It felt selfish. I should give everything to mom and dad and my mother-in-law. They needed me. And so it's something you really have to work on as a caregiver is to understand that you have a right to a life also. And so finding that balance is something that I help caregivers do because every situation is different. It's not a cookie cutter. We have to go in and I ask a lot of questions and we figure out who you have that could help you that's not. Where can you get support? What agencies can help you? There's just a ton of information in it. And like I said, everyone's a little bit different, but we figure out the plan that works for you. And the second part of that is don't be married to it because it's not going to last forever. It's going to last for a while. How long, I don't know. Every disease is different, every person is
Mhm.
different,
Ebb and
but
flow.
it will last for a while and then you need a new plan. And then that will last for a while and then you need a new plan. So, as a caregiver, you have to get used to change because that's what you're going to be facing is change. And so the more flexible you are, the easier time you're going to have as a caregiver. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And
It's
there is an area that I know is definitely in the first stage. for everyone who is first time. Um, we are women. We
Yes.
feel we could do it all ourselves. We don't need to
Yep.
ask for help. But then inside we're saying, I wish somebody would help me. But we're not asking, we're not communicating. But I've also found, and I'm just as, we'll say, guilty, because I had no idea the life of a caregiver.
Right.
How, and this is why, this is probably my number one reason, if I had to pick just one, why I want to have this conversation loudly and frequently, is it's a very lonely path and journey, but it doesn't
Yes.
have to be. People don't understand because they're not there yet. Hopefully, they
Right.
never will be. But if they've not experienced it, they have no way of understanding. So people say things to you that are very well meaning from the heart, but it is so not helpful. Um,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
what do you communicate, talk to, say, support, how to get someone who is now in this first stage to find a support, even if it's just a friend to really listen? And then, how
Hmm.
do you tell? Because I know if someone doesn't know how, they're not mind readers.
Right.
So, we almost need to train, teach people how to talk with us, how to listen to
Yes.
us, and how to
Yes.
be there for us to as
And that's
much as
so
they're able
funny.
to.
Yes. And I love it that you said that. That is my next point.
I knew that. I
So
didn't,
great
but
job.
great
You're
minds think
right there.
alike.
Yes. One of the most important things that you can do is to create your support staff. Get your team, your support team. When I say that, I feel a little hypocritical because I didn't do that for a long time, but I finally learned. And so, what I encourage caregivers to do when I'm visiting with them is get a little index card. That's all you need. And write down things that would help you if someone did it for you. Doesn't have to be caregiving things. It could be mow the lawn. It could be fix supper one night a week. Whatever, do the laundry for me. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Write down everything you can think of that would help you if someone would do it for you.
Even if it's to go
Now,
have a cup of coffee with me and just listen.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, put that on the list.
yeah.
Then just put that in your purse, take it along with you. Then when that friend comes up and says, well, let me know if I can help you do anything, which they do. They offer, and like you said, I have my little Wonder Woman cape on. I don't need any help. I got it all under control. When I know I don't, when I know I'm starting to frazzle.
Mhm.
So when they say that, you pull out that little index card and you hand it to them and you say, is there anything on this list that you would be willing to do? That way, I'm not pigeonholing them. I'm not saying, Kathleen, will you cook me supper one night a week? I'm not saying that. That may not be your wheelhouse. That may not be something you're willing to do. But you can look through that list and see if there's something that you would like to do
Mhm.
and some way that you could support me. And then, like I said, I'm not putting pressure on you. I'm letting you pick. I'm not saying pick one from the list. I'm saying, is there anything on this list that you would be willing to do? Take advantage of the opportunity when people are offering. And my brother really got me on this one. Oh, because I did. I had my Wonder Woman cape on. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And my younger brother at this time is the one who smacked me um,
In a loving
mentally,
way. Yeah.
and very loving, yes.
Mhm.
But he was offering to help, and I said, it's okay. I got it. I can handle it. And he said, Deb, don't rob me of my blessing. And it hit, it landed with my heart. Because how do you feel when you help someone else? You feel good. You feel blessed. You help other people and you receive joy.
Mhm.
And so he was telling me to reframe my thoughts, is what he was saying. And that's what we need to do as caregivers, reframe that thinking. You're not imposing on them, they're asking if they can help. Let them help. Don't steal their blessing. Isn't that amazing?
It
That,
is, and it really, and I've said that to people myself, that to friends, give me the opportunity to feel good by helping you.
yes. Yeah, because it does. And the
Absolutely.
support staff is so important for the caregiver. Because as you know, I mean, what happens if you burn out, then what happens to your loved one? Who's going to take care of them?
Yeah.
What happens to them? If you want to be the best caregiver you can be, then you need to get help. You need to let other people shoulder the burden. I like to say it takes a village to
It
care for
does.
a loved one, because it does.
And you shared on the same topic a great idea that I never would have thought of. And I don't know if it was when you and I were off camera just talking as friends or if it was in the holiday episode that we did. But one idea that you shared is if you have a neighbor or have another senior person
Yep.
who could be a companion, come over and sit and watch a movie with your loved one while you could go do something, whatever. Could you talk a little
Yes.
bit? I thought that
Oh,
was a great idea.
absolutely. I was so tired and I needed a break, and I felt like I didn't have anyone who could give me a break. And then I realized at church, we have a lot of senior people there who are lonely and they like to visit with people. And so I called one and I asked this little lady if she would be willing to come and sit with my mother in law and watch TV. Just watch a movie for an hour, can you, or 2 hours, whatever time you got, hour or two, and just watch TV with her for a little while to keep her company. And she said, "Yes, I would love to." So I loaded up my mother in law. We went and picked up this sweet little lady. They instantly became friends because it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be someone that they've known before. They connect and they connect quickly. So I brought her back to the house and sat them both on the couch and gave them their iced tea and little snacks. And they sat there and watched TV and enjoyed each other's company, enjoyed being together, spending time together, and I went out and gardened. It was fantastic. It did me so much good to be out in the sun, to be gardening, to not be worried about anyone. I was still there so that if anything happened, I could intervene, but I wasn't having to be constantly on guard because
That's the
other
word,
little,
to be on.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I could flip the switch and be
Hmm.
off because the other little lady was very cognizant. She just didn't drive anymore. And it did her a world of good. She thanked me over and over for allowing her to come over and visit with my mother-in-law. I was blew my
Yeah,
mind.
beautiful. What happened,
Yeah.
a bonus that all three of you received is it
Yes.
put each of you in your own separate space for your nervous system to begin to calm. You got to be out doing something that is number one, you're grounding in the soil, you're gardening. You're
Yes.
out in the fresh air in the sun. It's allowing your nervous system to calm. Your mother, was it your mother?
Mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law is now being able to laugh and talk and connect with someone different, which is going to boost her good hormones and calm her nervous system. And then the other woman is getting the same type of support for
Yeah.
her nervous system. So it's the
And she
bonus all
was
the way around
needed.
that you wouldn't even think about. Mm-hmm.
Right. The little older lady was necessary again. She was needed.
Yes.
She
Yes.
was being able to provide a service, whereas she had been feeling like no one needed her for anything anymore. So it was just fantastic all the way around. It was a great tool. I highly encourage people to do it.
This could be great for in your own community, starting a little group of folks that do this type of thing, just
Hmm.
because,
Yeah.
if there isn't already. I haven't looked.
I
Yeah,
don't think
but
there is, but it would be fantastic because it
yeah,
was a great bonus for us. So, and then so I mean, there's a lot of different things involved in it, but I think overall the main thing when you're at the diagnosis at the beginning is to learn as much as you can about the disease, learn as much as you can about your loved one, about their likes and dislikes, food, TV, music, all of it. And I suggest writing it down so that you can remember it. But write all these things down because they can communicate it to you right now. They probably are not going to be able to later. So you can please them and make them happier later in life the more you know about them right now. And listen when they tell you those stories, listen to the people's names because later on they'll start to tell the story and forget part and they will depend on you to continue the
hmm,
story. And you can't if you don't know it.
good point.
So that was a challenge. Another thing is to for caregivers, let go of perfectionism. And
There's
I
no
know I'm
such
going to
thing as
say that
perfect.
again. I know I will say it again because it's so important. Because I was a perfectionist, and that does not serve you as a caregiver.
Doesn't serve us at all as humans because there's no such thing, but I'll shut up about that.
That is true. No, you're
That's
absolutely
another
right.
conversation.
Yeah. So, and then next time we're going to be talking about in the thick of it, when you are in the middle of this journey and all of this crazy stuff is going on, what do you do? What are some tools and strategies that you can use? And just some tips and lessons learned. And so I'll share those when we get together next time.
Wonderful. I'm so looking forward to that. But in the meantime, you, as I mentioned in the introduction, are quite an accomplished author. And this stage that we're talking about right now, of all of your books, is there one in particular that you would recommend right now for this stage in the journey?
Absolutely. Yes, there is. This is called Caregiving: How to Hold On While Letting Go. And that's me and my mother in law in my backyard. And
Okay.
so this book, I wrote in it things that I wish I would have known sooner, lessons learned. And then I also included a lot of ideas and action steps. I'm all about action steps. I'm not a fluff person. And so I have two brothers and a sister. We have different ways of dealing with mom and dad. And so I include all those different ways in there that tell you, hey, when they're doing the constant repetitive thing, this is what my sister Brenda did. This is what my brother Mike did. This is
Good
what my
point.
brother Mitch did. Because we all have a different relationship
Yeah.
with that loved one. And so we handle things and we have different personalities.
Mhm.
And we were all different before the disease. So we're all different after the disease. You need
Good points.
options.
Good
Yeah, the
points.
more options, the better. And so that's what this book does. It walks you through steps and stages of the disease, lets you know what to expect. But not only that, it tells you this is what you can do to make life better when you're at that time. And there's pictures in it too. Whoops, I flipped past them real fast. But of my mom and my dad and my mother-in-law and my mom, who became best little buddies. They were so cute and did everything together. So, and that was just exciting to have two little ones,
Yeah.
and that's my daughter photobombing them in the background.
Cute.
But anyway, it's really good, and it has a lot of encouragement for caregivers. It will let them know, and that's my mom and dad when they first got married, and then
Mhm.
years later.
Oh, nice.
And so there's a lot of encouragement in it because I believe there's always hope. And you need to remember the brightness, remember the good, look to the good. Don't get enveloped in all of the negativity, and everybody will be happier.
And that is a beautiful spot to finish on. But I would also like you to please share, how can someone find you and reach out and communicate with you on a more private level?
My website is thepurplevine.com, and my email address is Deb at thepurplevine.com. So you can shoot me an email. You can go to my website, sign up for my weekly email.
Mhm.
You can read articles that are helpful on the website as well, and just see a wide variety of ways that I support caregivers. But I do, one of the main things that I do are one on one consultations with caregivers. And we usually do that via Zoom so that we can see each other. And I also do it via Zoom so that you don't have to worry about getting your loved one dressed and up and around and
Yeah.
take them out somewhere and then worry about what they're getting into. None of that. We take all that stress away. Schedule a time when your loved one generally takes a nap or when someone else is going to be over watching TV with them so that you can focus and discuss. And then we'll discuss your specific needs, your specific situations, and develop a targeted plan just for you. And I offered this the first session, I'm going to give completely free to your listeners so that
Thank you.
they can see if that is something that they like, that if we click, which I usually do, I'm a kind of nice person.
I think so.
Good, thank you. So, but they can see if it's something that's going to be beneficial for them or not. And so I don't do any kind of sales or anything. If you're interested in my books, that's great. They're on my website. They're also on Amazon. If you're not, that's fine too. We can still be friends. It doesn't matter. But I
Beautiful.
can help. And so I hope caregivers will just take that step and reach out, because I guarantee you're going to leave a call feeling better than when you came in.
I have already felt better talking with you the many times that we have. So I can
Thank you.
vouch for the fact that you will feel better. To my
Thank
listeners,
you.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I will have all of Deb's information, her link to the Purple Vine website. And please don't hesitate to reach out to Deb and have a conversation with her. If you're not in this stage, you're just kind of gathering information, but you know someone else or anyone else who is in any of these stages of the journey, please share this episode with them and share Deb's contact information. And let's bring this journey, this life journey, out from the darkness and bring it into the light and be more vulnerable, have more conversations, and know that if you're a caregiver, you really aren't alone, even though I know some days it might feel that way, but you are not alone. And I thank you all for listening, for being a part of the Your Life, Your Way community. Stay tuned. This is episode one. We had the holiday episode, but this is episode 1 in a series of 3. So the next one will be when you're in the thick of it, and we'll keep your ears tuned to that, and it'll be coming out soon. Thank you so much. I wish you a whole lot of peace and many, many blessings. Thank you.